In my past life, I was the infamous campus beauty, and I fell for the school's untouchable heartthrob. The valedictorian also had a crush on him. Worried I'd mess up his exams, she deliberately intercepted the note I sent asking him to meet, which led to me getting killed by a car while I was waiting for him alone. 8 years later, the guy I loved found out the truth, had a mental breakdown, and took her down with him. Now that I'm back for a second chance, she has decided not to stop us from falling in love. She wants to watch him and me live a life worse than pigs and dogs. After school, just like in my past life, I handed a note to my desk mate, Chloe. I clasped my hands together and looked at her reverently. Please, you have to give this to Leo. It's super important. Please, Chloe, you're the best. Chloe glanced at me, a flicker of contempt flashing in her eyes. I have a habit of using cutesy, repetitive words, and my voice is naturally a little syrupy. Based on this, she decided I was fake and manipulative, the textbook definition of a green tea. In my past life, I idolized her. Whatever she said, I treated as gospel. She said I sounded fake, so I tried desperately to lower my voice, which just made me sound like a duck. But in this life, her halo effect over me had long since vanished. I went right on speaking in my usual way, and I waited patiently for her answer. Just like last time, she politely took the note and said softly, okay. She and Leo were neighbors, which is why I asked her to pass the note. The big college entrance exams were tomorrow. I was a nervous wreck and just wanted to see Leo. Maybe a hug and a kiss from my boyfriend would help ease my pre-exam jitters. But Chloe didn't believe that. She always thought I was a shameless siren trying to corrupt Leo, that I would drag him down with me. So in our past life, she carelessly tossed my note and didn't mention a thing when she ran into Leo on her way home. But this time, she had been reborn. She would give the note to Leo. Not because I asked her to, but because of the hatred in her heart. In my last life, I had no idea Chloe hated me. She was pretty, got great grades, and was always polite and thoughtful. As a class officer, she was adored by teachers and students alike. She was my idol too. I was floored when the teacher made her my desk mate. I carefully put away my little mirror, my non-required books, and anything else that wasn't related to class. I stopped wearing makeup, stopped listening to my MP3 player, and forced myself to sit ramrod straight. I was terrified of doing something wrong that might distract her. She was so perfect, so brilliant. A nobody like me felt like just sitting next to her let me bask in a little bit of that straight-A student glory. Bathed in her holy light, I was filled with happiness just looking at her, and I couldn't stand to hear anyone say a bad word about her. When I proudly announced at home that my new desk mate was the top-ranked girl in our humanities track, my scumbag dad scoffed as usual, his mouth full of filth. Book smarts can't beat big boobs. It's better to marry well than to study well. I saw red and went at him with a stool. By the time the neighbors called the cops like they always did, and the community police officer showed up like he always did, my dad had already landed a few good kicks. But he didn't get off easy either. The stool left a long, bloody tear in the back of his t-shirt. That was the price for insulting my goddess in front of me. I was the so-called campus beauty, a title that came with an endless stream of dirty rumors. As a class officer, Chloe would shut down the other students when they started spreading that disgusting trash. That's when I was most grateful to her. When I admired her the most. I thought of her as my god. Only later did I learn that Chloe looked down on me just like everyone else. She just had too much self-respect to join in on the low-class gossip. Leo and I were dating. But Chloe never thought Leo, as a hot-blooded teenage boy, was at fault. She was convinced it was all me, the vixen, the master manipulator, using dirty tricks to seduce the cool, untouchable boy on the pedestal. So in her eyes, all our little moments as a couple were just my shameless, calculated moves to seduce him. Ava would deliberately turn her head, and her bright red lips would land softly on Leo's cheek. His ears would instantly turn crimson as he looked back at her, flustered. But she would just blink innocently and say, "Oops, I didn't mean to do that, sorry." Ava would flash a lazy, fox-like smile, her big eyes shimmering. Leo was just a sheltered high school kid. How could he handle that mix of pure and provocative charm? Naturally, he lost his mind, fell for her completely, and would do anything she said. Ava always kept a bottle of artificial tears in her pencil case, and she'd put in a couple of drops every now and then to make her big eyes look watery, and even more pitiful. Leo was just a clueless guy. How was he supposed to know about these green tea tactics? Of course, he'd just assume his beloved girlfriend was upset, so he'd put down his books and spend all his time and energy trying to cheer her up. She used her elegant, clever writing to express the exact same sentiment as my filth-spewing scumbag dad, and the classmates spreading dirty rumors. So when she forgot to pass on my note, she didn't feel a shred of guilt. Only the immense satisfaction of having saved the untouchable boy. Even after she learned about my tragic fate in our past life, she was unconcerned. She thought it was just a coincidence, that I was unlucky. Deep down, she even felt I had it coming. Me, Ava, the infamous campus beauty. My grades were trash, my family was trash, I was poor and restless, and I had the audacity to try and pull a god down from his pedestal. Of course I deserved to die. And Chloe remained pristine, standing on her moral high ground. Chloe gave the note to Leo. On the very night that had separated us by life and death in our past life, I saw him, the boy who ran toward me, arriving as promised under the streetlight. He had been running, and his fair skin was flushed. There were beads of sweat in his short hair, and his dark eyes looked wet, as if they'd been dipped in water. He was holding a small container of ice cream, and looking at me with a smile in his eyes. Sea salt chocolate. My favorite flavor. Leo was handsome with fair skin, a straight nose and deep-set eyes. Because he was slow to pick up on social cues, he had a naturally innocent, slightly dazed look when he looked at people. Our classmates jokingly called him the flower on a high peak. Chloe was the perennial #1 in the humanities track, and Leo was the undisputed, record-breaking #1 in the science track. Their parents were both university professors and lived across the hall from each other. From any angle, they should have been a match made in heaven. But the person Leo liked was me. I used to joke with Leo that we were born in the wrong era. 20 years ago, a Cinderella and Prince Charming story like ours was the stuff of romance novels. But times had changed. Now it was all about matching social status. With my humble background, I was only fit to be the villainess. Leo held the ice cream and scooped out the last spoonful, feeding it to me. He didn't say anything, just smiled with his lips pressed together. In his bright, dark pupils was the reflection of a stunning girl, pouting playfully at him. He was never much of a talker, I was the one who chattered away. I was used to his silence. He didn't need to speak. Just having him look at me with such focus was enough to make me happy. I held the ice cream in my mouth, blinked, and was about to kiss him when he suddenly grabbed my hand and pressed it firmly against his t-shirt, just over his heart. Thump, thump. Through the cool, smooth fabric, I could feel the strong, powerful beat of a man's heart. He held my hand there, not letting me pull away. I looked up, and he looked down at me. He said softly, "You'll always be my leading lady, Ava." I blinked, then smiled and punched him lightly. That's such a cheesy line. Penalty, say it again. His handsome brows furrowed in serious thought. It looked like my question was more difficult for him than the final problem on a math test. Before he could speak again, I leaned in and covered his mouth with mine. Silly Leo, how could I ever dislike your sweet words? How could I ever bear to make things hard for you? It was a long, passionate kiss that lasted until we'd used up the last bit of oxygen in our lungs. Panting, I snuggled against his chest, listening to the frantic pounding that echoed through his entire body. The big exams are tomorrow, Leo, I whispered. Remember our promise? Yeah, I won't forget. His lips lingered on the top of my head, his warm breath making my scalp tingle. I smiled and let him lead me through the park on that summer night. Chloe knew Leo and I had a promise about the exams, but she didn't know the details. She guessed that I must have demanded he go easy on me and intentionally flunked the tests. That someone who could have gotten into an Ivy League school would underperform and go to a community college with me instead. When I first heard her theory, I was speechless. This was the top student I had admired with all my heart? Did that bizarre logic really not affect her studies? Did she really think the boy she'd been secretly in love with for years had such little intelligence and no free will? That he was just a piece of clay for me to mold? Or maybe I had learned some strange black magic that could drastically lower someone's IQ. The promise Leo and I made was actually very simple. He would apply to the civil engineering program at a top university, and I would work hard to get into the French department at a decent state school in the same city. We kept it a secret because Leo's family wouldn't let him study civil engineering. His parents demanded he study medicine and become the respected head of a department at a top-tier hospital. Driven by a mix of self-righteousness and her love for Leo, Chloe decided to hide my note to prevent me from influencing his decision any further. That decision ultimately led to the tragedy of all three of us. I hope this time, it's not too late to change things. At 8:30, Leo walked me home. When I got back, my dad, surprisingly, wasn't drunk or yelling at me. He was sitting on the couch with his legs crossed, watching a soccer game. When he saw me come in, he just snorted. "Where the hell have you been? Get your ass to bed. I've got something tomorrow, so you're getting to the exam on your own." I hadn't expected him to take me anyway. I shrugged and went to my room. As I changed into my pajamas, I looked at myself in the mirror. I was alive. Every inch of my skin was soft, every smile was bright, every breath made my chest rise and fall, and every word I spoke vibrated in the air. All of it, every single thing, was a sign of being alive. I wasn't dead. I hadn't become a ghost, forced to watch helplessly as everything fell apart into an irreversible, tragic end. I clenched my fists. This time, I would walk into the exam hall with everyone else my age. This time, maybe I really could walk hand in hand with Leo toward the future we dreamed of. The final bell rang, signaling the end of the last exam. I put down my pen, my arm aching from writing so intensely for so long. Outside the exam center, parents were everywhere, braving the scorching sun, holding drinks and anxiously waiting. The students were either gathered in groups, frantically comparing answers, or leaving like heroes, surrounded by their parents. The first person I saw was Chloe. She wasn't like the other excited students. Before, I would have been starstruck, worshipping her calm and collected demeanor as the aura of a top student. But now I knew she was just reliving the same experience. Chloe walked straight toward me. "Ava, how did you do?" she asked. She rarely deigned to speak to me first. Maybe she wanted to confirm her suspicions? "Not bad," I said honestly. "I think I have a shot at getting into a state school." I didn't hypocritically ask her how she did. In her past life, she got into a top-tier university. This time around, her scores would only be better. Me, Chloe, and Leo were all in the same exam hall. While we were talking, Leo emerged from the crowd, clutching 2 bottles of iced tea, and strode over to us. He handed one to me, hesitated for a moment, and then asked Chloe, "Want some?" Chloe shook her head and politely declined. Then she asked, "How did you do?" As she looked at Leo, I saw a flash of contempt and hatred in her eyes. She desperately wanted to see him fail. The thought sent a bone-deep chill through me. Leo didn't notice anything unusual. He'd always been slow to read other people's emotions. It was okay. His answer seemed to surprise Chloe. She instinctively pressed him. "You didn't mess up?" Leo paused. "No." Chloe was stunned for a moment. She shook her head, gave me a deep look, and walked away. Leo was completely baffled. He looked back at me. "What's with her?" I took a sip of my drink and gave him a playful glare. "Something's wrong with your childhood friend and you're asking me? How should I know?" Leo shook his head and said seriously, "She's not my childhood friend. But she was your goddess. I thought you'd understand your goddess." I let out a laugh. "She's not my goddess," I said slowly. "Not anymore." We walked out of the exam center hand in hand, laughing and joking. A TV station was doing a news segment on the exams. The camera was pointed at the main gate, where a reporter was holding a microphone and interviewing a girl. It was Chloe. Leo and I instinctively let go of each other's hands, but the camera had already mercilessly swept past us. On the local news that night, Leo and I were the main event. A gorgeous couple taking the exams together. The whole world knows you're dating now. Man, I'm so jealous. That pure high school romance. I stared at the screen, a chill creeping through me. So this was another thing Chloe had changed after being reborn. In a clever way, she had exposed my relationship with Leo to the world. In our past life, she didn't want Leo to hate her, so she never told his parents about us. In this life, she obviously had no intention of keeping our secret. But according to her new persona, she didn't want to have anything to do with Leo anymore. So she would never go and tattle on us herself. Which made the TV news stunt absolutely necessary. She actively went to be interviewed so the camera would be pointing in our direction as we left. It exposed our relationship while allowing her to remain safely outside the incident. I heard the sound of a key turning in the lock. My dad was home. I was about to head back to my room when he burst in, grabbed my arm with brute force, and dragged me into the living room cursing. "You're so damn young, and you've already learned to hook up with guys just like your mother? Who was that guy walking out with you? Too young to learn anything good, but old enough to be hitting on my daughter? Did you let him sleep with you? I'm telling you, you little slut, you're still my daughter. If he dared to sleep with you, I'll crush his balls." I cried out, but he ignored me, throwing me onto the sofa. He leaned over me, pointing a finger in my face and yelling, "You fucking remember this. Be a good woman. Don't you dare just spread your legs for any man. If you do, I'd rather kill you and feed you to the dogs than have you bring shame on me like your mother did." He wasn't educated. He was good at hitting people, but his insults were repetitive. He quickly ran out of things to say. He stopped to catch his breath, his eyes bulging as he tried to think of new insults. Seizing the opportunity, I pushed myself up, grabbed a beer bottle from the table, and smashed it over his forehead. He yelped in pain and jumped back. I leaped off the sofa, ran into my room and slammed the lock. I heard noises from outside. He was pacing, opening a drawer, probably looking for cotton swabs and alcohol. In our house, those were more common than salt and pepper. Soon he started dabbing at the wound, hissing in pain and muttering, "Fucking whore little bitch." After a moment, I suddenly heard him mutter to himself smugly, "Heh, ruthless and vicious. In that way she's just like me, not like her tramp of a mother. That's my girl, all right." I leaned against the back of the door, sliding to the floor and burying my face in my hands. See, this is my messed up family, my terrible parents. So I'm not at all surprised that Chloe looks down on me. I don't even really blame her. I'm just confused. She claims to love Leo, but in her past life, she treated him like an untouchable god on a pedestal. In this life, she treats him like dirt, like looking at him is an insult. But through it all, did she ever once try to actually understand him? Does she know what kind of person he is, why he's so quiet, or why he has social anxiety? My dad and I got into a huge fight over me and Leo. He doesn't have a cell phone, and I didn't dare go to Leo's house to find him. All I could do was wait, my stomach in knots. I lay in bed, scrolling through my phone, looking at all the party pictures my classmates were posting in the group chat. Some were at karaoke, some were out eating and drinking, and a few had already started their summer vacations. No one contacted me. In everyone's mind, I was the daughter of a thug, a little gangster myself. My father had been in a gang fight, killed someone, and served time in prison. My mom was a bad woman who ran off with another man when I was 1, leaving me with my elderly grandmother. My grandmother was a low-income city resident on welfare, who earned a little extra money running a small fruit stand on the corner. The old woman couldn't afford expensive fruit, so most of what she sold were bruised, wrinkled, second-rate items. I suspect my grandma was selling less fruit and more of a sob story. Thankfully, the world is full of kind, naive people. On cold winter nights, my grandmother's dim little lamp always managed to attract some hurried white-collar workers who, out of a small act of charity, would buy her fruit. Through a combination of heartbreaking strategy and tireless work from dawn till dusk, my grandmother managed to raise me until I was 12, when she handed me over to my father, who had just been released from prison on parole. Her last words before she died were, "You have to be good to our little girl." My grandmother may not have been a morally perfect person by society's standards. Her little fruit stand had a whiff of emotional blackmail to it, but to me, she was the best grandmother in the world. Whenever a kind person bought her fruit, my grandmother's face would crinkle into a smile, and she would tell me happily that there were still more good people in the world than bad. That was my first real lesson about life. Be a good person. That would make Grandma happy, and she would love me for it. But my classmates didn't know any of that. In their eyes, I was pretty, had bad grades, and a naturally syrupy voice. I just looked like a bad kid. According to the rumors, I was a gang boss who ran around with a group of lackeys, bullying anyone who looked at me the wrong way by dragging them into the bathroom for a beating. And behind me, a legion of legendary gangster big shots had my back. Of course, the juiciest part of the rumor mill was how I supposedly sold my body to please these bosses and get money out of them. The reality? Pathetically, as a legendary bad girl with bad grades, I spent almost all of my free time typing on a keyboard. The main reason my grades were bad was that I was afraid of teachers. I subconsciously resisted listening to them. I was afraid of all of them, from the male teacher who once tried to take my clothes off to the female homeroom teacher, who called me a rotten slut with a look of disgust on her face. Even when I later went to a good school with good teachers, the deep-seated hatred made me unwilling to listen in class, unwilling to accept them as teachers. I always suspected that sooner or later they would show their true faces, ugly, soft, greasy, and grotesque. But I was an exceptionally good writer. The kind of good where teachers from the honors classes would ask for my essays to use as examples. The only reason I got into the advanced humanities class in high school was because my language arts teacher appreciated my writing. I was even making money from my writing on a certain website. A classmate on a cruise vacation posted the price list, and out of boredom, I calculated that my writing income was enough to cover the cost for 2 people. After another scroll through my feed, there was still no sound from outside. I quietly put down my phone and got ready for bed. Just then, I heard 3 taps on my window. Light and rhythmic. It was Leo. My family lived on the 2nd floor of an old state-owned factories residential complex, a building from the 70s or 80s. It was dilapidated on the outside and decaying on the inside. The only good thing about it was the large tree right outside my balcony. Its massive trunk and numerous branches made it very climber-friendly. Seeing Leo through the window, my heart clenched. His face was pale, and his eyes had a vacant look. After I opened the window, he stepped inside without a word and pulled me into a tight embrace, burying his head in my neck. I reached up and gently stroked the back of his head. A moment later, I heard his broken, suppressed sobs. Every time Leo cried, it felt like a heavy rainstorm was breaking inside my heart, drenching everything. I can't cry. One of the reasons my mother gave for abandoning me was that I was born unable to shed tears, a sure sign of a cold-hearted, ill-fated child who would never repay her for raising me. In high school, after I earned my first payment for my writing, I secretly went to the hospital for a checkup. The doctor said I had congenital underdeveloped lacrimal glands and needed to use artificial tears to relieve my dry eyes. So the artificial tears in my pencil case really weren't a green tea prop. If Chloe had ever deigned to ask me, I would have told her. But she never felt the need to have a deep conversation with me. Unlike me, Leo was actually a big crier. The first time I ever interacted with him was after school in the gym. I accidentally stumbled upon him sitting in a corner, face buried in his hands, crying silently. Like every other time I saw someone crying, I walked over and offered him a pack of tissues. He waved his hand dismissively without looking up, his voice hoarse as he told me to go away. I quietly sat down nearby, in a dark, unlit corner, and just like him, I sat on the floor, hugged my knees and watched him. I watched his shoulders give a small, sudden shudder from time to time, and his stomach rise and fall rapidly like a frog's. I watched him take quick, shallow breaths, as if each inhale was being forced out of his throat before it could even reach his lungs. What would it feel like to have a good, cathartic cry? When he was tired of crying, he lowered his hands, his red-rimmed eyes staring blankly across the twilight-drenched gym. He jumped when he saw me, stammering, Why are you still here?" I stood up and dusted myself off. "I'm leaving now." "Thanks, classmate." He frowned, probably annoyed, but my words piqued his curiosity. "Thanks. For what?" "Thanks for crying for me," I said with a smile. "I was born unable to cry. Do you know how frustrating that is? Watching you cry felt like I was crying myself. It was so liberating." From that day on, Leo and I gradually grew closer. He told me his secret. To the outside world, Leo, the golden boy, had a pair of perfect, shining parents. PhDs from the US, professors, witty, and impeccably polite. No one knew that this couple was married in name only, and that they were strangely united on only one thing: how to raise their son in the most simple and effective way. Growing up, everything Leo did had to meet his parents' standards of efficiency. After every meal, his utensils had to be placed in a specific spot. His bowl had to be as clean as if it had been washed, with not a single grain of rice left on his chopsticks. A dirty bowl meant more trouble for the dishwasher. He was only allowed one piece of fruit a day, no more for fear of diarrhea. No less because a vitamin deficiency could lead to illness. No snacks of any kind were allowed to avoid getting sick. Sickness meant trouble. In short, all of Leo's human activities were predicated on not creating any extra burden for his parents. Even as a young man about to turn 18, Leo wasn't allowed to lock his bedroom door. He didn't even have his own cell phone. To show how civilized they were, his parents bought the latest iPhone and placed it on the dining room table, declaring it the family's public phone. Leo could use it, but he couldn't change the password. And what were the consequences of disobeying his parents' orders? His parents were highly educated intellectuals. Of course, they wouldn't resort to vulgar insults and violence like my scumbag dad. But their house had a specially made dark room, built with soundproofing and light-blocking materials. Once the door was closed and the light was off, all outside sound and light ceased to exist. His parents considered this a more civilized form of punishment. Every time Leo talked about that dark room, he would tremble uncontrollably. His earliest memory of it was from when he was 5. On his way home from school, he ran into one of his father's graduate students. The friendly older student bought him an ice cream bar, and then casually mentioned it to his father. His father locked him in the dark room for a full day. Not only did he starve him, but he also made him relieve himself in there, not allowing him to come out. How does a 5-year-old boy spend a full 24 hours, not a minute less, in absolute darkness with his own waste? He must have cried until he lost his voice, must have screamed until his throat was raw. But the world was silent, except for his own cries and screams. Eventually, even his crying would have faded, and he might have heard the sound of himself wetting his pants, the sound of blood rushing through his veins, the sound of his own heart beating in his chest. Every time I thought about what he went through, a chill ran down my spine. It almost made my own foul-mouthed, criminal, scumbag dad seem endearing by comparison. A boy like Leo was, of course, not allowed to cry. That was a symbol of trouble. It meant an adult would have to spend time dealing with his emotions. So he could only hide and cry in deserted places. But school wasn't safe either. For instance, that day, it could have been me who walked into the gym. Or it could have been someone else. I told him he could come to my place, to my room. He could close the door and cry as much as he wanted. I took his hand, led him to see the big tree, and pointed to the small balcony with the large wind chime. That's my room. Whether the light is on or not, you can always knock on my window. Just 3 taps, and I'll know it's you. I'll open it for you. During the summer of our sophomore year, Leo came to my house for the first time. It was after the placement exams. He had a fever during the test and his performance suffered, dropping him to 5th in the grade. His punishment was 2 days in the dark room. When Leo came to my house, he looked like a ghost. His short hair was messy and dirty, his face was covered in stubble, and his eyes were lifeless. What worried me most were the thick bandages on his arm. He had tried to kill himself. But just before he lost consciousness, he thought of me, of the promise we made. When we finish college, we can go far away, where the adults can never find us. In that moment, my voice was like a lifeline, pulling him back from the brink. He fumbled for the gauze in his drawer, stopped the bleeding, and applied medicine. Then he sat back down at his desk and quietly worked on practice problems. His parents saw the wounds on his wrist but chose to ignore them. They didn't ask, didn't say a word, as if they were afraid that opening their mouths would invite endless trouble. After dinner, he placed his bowl neatly back in its designated spot, said he was going to a classmate's house to discuss problems, and walked out the door. He followed my instructions and came to my house. As he told me his story in broken sobs, I didn't know how to comfort him. On a strange impulse, I kissed his lips. That was the kiss that started it all. So in a way, I was the one who made the first move between us. Maybe that's part of the shameless evidence Chloe held against me. In my past life, Leo didn't find out about my death until after the college entrance exams were over. I don't know how it happened, but after I died, my soul didn't dissipate. Instead, it just drifted around, always hovering near him and Chloe. He went crazy and ran to my house, just in time to find my dad cleaning out my belongings. My dad beat him until his head was bleeding. He didn't fight back, didn't even try to cover his head. He just stood there, taking it, his voice raw as he begged. "Sir, please give Ava back to me. Please give her back, please." My dad knocked out a few of his teeth and his face swelled up, making his words slurred, but he didn't seem to notice, just kept repeating, "Please, sir, please. Give Ava back to me." It was Chloe who rushed to our house and threatened to call the police, forcing my dad to stop and kick them out. Chloe sat with him downstairs until dawn. She was the one who answered the call from Leo's parents, telling them Leo was helping her with a project and had to pull an all-nighter. Leo's parents always appeared kind and reasonable to outsiders, so naturally, they didn't question it. During that dark time, it was Chloe who helped Leo get through it. She was the one who found him trying to kill himself, again and again. She was the one who found ways to make him eat, forced him to walk, and pushed him to speak. Even after the exam results came out, she was the one who, along with his parents, filled out his college applications for him. Not for medicine because his mental state wasn't suitable. Instead, they chose the computer science department at another university. It was in the same city as the university she was attending. For 4 years, she slowly worked her way into his heart. After graduation, they both stayed in that city to work. Once their careers were stable, Leo proposed to her. Leo didn't want a wedding. He was terrified of seeing the parents he had escaped from for 4 years. But Chloe insisted. She needed a grand wedding to put a perfect, happy ending to her years of bitter, unrequited love. Leo gave her what she wanted. Even though he was so stiff and awkward facing his parents at the wedding that he walked with his left arm and left leg forward. The MC teased him, saying he was too happy to walk straight. After they got married, she often complained that Leo was cold and distant with her, nothing like the passionate way he had been with me. I found it strange. Wasn't it his cool, aloof style that she had fallen for? Why didn't she like it now? She also saw another side of Leo. One day, Leo got a call from his father, who criticized him for being a failure, for not getting a promotion after so long at his company, for having no achievements to his name, and for not even being attractive to headhunters. Even through the phone, his body trembled. After he hung up, he crouched down like a child, covering his face as tears streamed through his fingers. Chloe came out and saw him, shocked. "Why are you sitting here crying?" She blurted out. "Are you even a man?" Although she immediately apologized for her words, very sincerely, and apologized again that night, and again the next day. I knew that for that entire day, Leo's body never stopped shaking. I knew that version of him. It was him using all his strength to control his urge to cry. It was his soul at war with his body. His soul was wailing, but his body refused to shed a single tear. After that, he really did stop crying. In the years after my death, my inability to cry had been transferred to him. Then came the 8th year of their marriage. Chloe kept wanting to try for a baby, but Leo told her he wasn't interested in children. They could be a dink couple. If Chloe wasn't confident about their future, he offered to get a vasectomy, an irreversible one. But Chloe refused. She loved children, and wanted at least 2 of Leo's kids. They argued about it. Frustrated, Chloe went into the study and stumbled upon an old, dusty iron box. She pulled it out from the very back of a drawer. Before she even opened it, she already guessed what was inside. She wasn't wrong. It held all of our memories, Leo's and mine. Notes filled with silly sweet nothings, movie ticket stubs, boba shop receipts with hearts drawn on them, a list of books we planned to read, and an unfamiliar phone number. Chloe didn't know what the number was and tossed it aside. But I froze, my entire soul burning with a sour heat. I remembered that number. It was from winter break of our sophomore year. He was passing by my neighborhood with his parents. The desire to see me was overwhelming, but he couldn't get away. The socially awkward boy actually worked up the courage to borrow a phone from a random lady on the street. The first words he said to me on that unfamiliar number were a choked, nasal sob. "Ava, I miss you so much." Chloe flipped to the last item and found a piece of paper. She held it, and her hand began to tremble. It was the life checklist Leo and I had made. Go to college together. Go abroad together. Take a cruise around the world together. Have one child. That last wish made her completely break down. Leo came home just in time to see it. He stood in the doorway, stunned, for a long time, even forgetting to comfort the sobbing, distraught Chloe. In reality, he hadn't taken that box out in a long time. Ever since they got married, Leo had forbidden himself from revisiting his past. If Chloe had been calm enough, she would have noticed the thick layer of dust on the box. If Leo had wanted to, he could have easily cleared up the misunderstanding. But neither of them spoke. Chloe was a woman of refinement who cared about her composure. Soon, she wiped her tears, stood up, and said as calmly as she could, "Your parents are here. We need to go pick them up from the airport." Leo's body instinctively stiffened for a second, but looking at Chloe's red, swollen eyes, he nodded silently. Chloe had invited his parents, hoping they could convince Leo in person about having a child. On the way to the airport, for reasons I'll never know, Chloe started talking about me. That forbidden name, sealed away for nearly 8 years, slipped from her lips like a ghost. "Did you know? The night before the exams, Ava wanted to ask you out. But I didn't want her to affect your scores, so I never gave you the note. I wanted to fly over and cover her mouth, to plug Leo's ears, but I had no physical form. I couldn't change anything. I could only watch as Leo, who had been focused on driving, slowly, inch by inch, turned his head, like a mental patient who had lost all brain function. He asked her in an almost childlike tone, "What did you say?" "I don't understand." Chloe was already screaming in terror. "Watch the road, Leo. Focus on driving." "What are you doing?" Leo just asked again, "What did you just say?" "I said I didn't give you her note." "Leo, it's been 8 years. Ava turned to ash a long time ago. Be rational." "So that's how it was." Leo nodded, his head turning back to the road with a blank expression as he muttered something under his breath. I floated closer to hear. He was saying, "Ava, oh Ava, I miss you so much, so much." The next moment, I watched him calmly spin the steering wheel and slam his foot on the gas. The car swerved in a bizarre arc on the river bridge, smashed through the guardrail, and flew into the air toward the river below. "No, Leo, I don't want you to do this. I want you to live well." I screamed, diving toward the car, trying to lift it, trying to push Leo out of the way, trying to open the door, but I couldn't do anything. Finally, I just hung there in midair, trembling and sobbing uncontrollably. "Leo, I don't need you to do this. It doesn't matter if you married Chloe. It doesn't matter if you have a bunch of kids. It doesn't even matter if you completely forget me. I just want you to live a good life. To cry for me, to laugh for me, to feel love and be loved for me, to treat this world well for me. That's all." But no matter how loud I cried, how piercing my screams were, no one could hear me. About 10 minutes after the car had completely sunk beneath the water, the space around me began to ripple. In a flash of light, Chloe and I were both sent back to the time just before the college exams. And I finally understood why I could never be reincarnated. Because this is a story, and Chloe is the protagonist. In the last life, she saved Leo, only to be killed by him in revenge 8 years later. This life, the real story begins. This time, she won't step in to save Leo's fate. She's going to stand by and watch as Leo and I descend into madness and ruin. Today's TV news segment was the first big gift she'd given us since being reborn. When Leo appeared before me, he was just as pale and broken as the first time he came to my house in our sophomore year. The moment I opened the window, he pulled me into a tight embrace. So tight, so fierce, I could feel my ribs ache. He quickly let go and opened his backpack, which held his ID card and student ID. He looked at me and said softly, "My dad told me to break up with you. He told me to go into the dark room and not come out until I'd thought it through. This time I didn't give in. I fought him, Ava." No wonder he had a scratch on his face and a bruise on his lip. I reached out to touch it, and he flinched away in pain. After a moment, he leaned back in, rubbing the uninjured side of his face against my palm. Like a little lost puppy, he murmured, "You're a girl, and you dare to fight your dad. I can't let you show me up." I snorted with laughter. "I'm not just any girl. I'm a gangster." Leo couldn't stay at my place long term, So after some discussion, we decided to use this opportunity to take a trip. I gave my scumbag dad a simple explanation, just saying I was going out with a girlfriend. As he hurled insults at me, I calmly packed my bags and left. He chased me out the door and forcibly stuffed a card into my pocket. Your old man has money. There's $5,000 on this card. When it's gone, you get your ass back here. Bottom line, if you need money, you ask your dad. Don't go getting any crooked ideas. Don't follow your mother's path. Before he could spew out anything worse, I grabbed my suitcase and bolted out of the residential complex. And just like that, unlike in my past life, Leo was practically kicked out of his house right after the exams. Chloe called me once. She asked politely if I knew where Leo was. As she spoke, she deliberately feigned indifference to hide the gloating glee behind her words. It's not that I'm worried about him, it's just that we're neighbors, and my parents are worried too. You know how bad things got between him and his family, because of you. Mr. and Mrs. Young only have him. He's always been their pride and joy. For him to suddenly hide a girlfriend from them, especially with your family situation, it's normal for them to have a hard time accepting it. I pushed away Leo, who was currently nibbling on my neck, and answered with a straight face. Leo is really sad and guilty right now. He wants to go back, but he's afraid his parents won't forgive him. Besides, he has to take responsibility for me, right? I'm not letting him go back anytime soon. Leo grunted and rolled off me, sitting up to stare at me with his dark, obsidian eyes full of confusion and annoyance. Ugh, there was no way to explain it to him. Chloe's whole purpose in this new life was to see him miserable, desperate, and at rock bottom. To see me become the trashy, manipulative girl she always thought I was. Chloe was clearly very satisfied with my answer. Her voice became much lighter, so much so that it lacked any real sincerity. Don't worry about his parents. Us old neighbors will help talk to them. Tell him not to worry. Whenever he's ready, he should just go back and apologize. She didn't try to persuade me, probably thinking it was a waste of breath. Or maybe she hoped I would drag Leo down even further. All the better for her. The college acceptance letters came out. Just like last time, Chloe was accepted into a top-tier university without any suspense. Unlike last time, Leo wasn't going to be in the same city. This time, Leo didn't study computer science. Instead, he chose the best university in the country for civil engineering. A lot of people shook their heads, thinking it was a waste of his high scores to choose that major. Chloe posted on her social feed. The picture was of a fancy purebred dog trying to steal food from a mutt. The caption read, "Everyone has their own path. Don't worry, don't interfere." Leo glanced at it on my phone, completely baffled. Only I knew what she meant. She was warning herself never to be charitable again, never to interfere with someone else's karma. Since Leo was content to be a mutt, she could only respect his choice and wish him well. The comments were full of bootlickers. Your enlightened perspective is something us mere mortals can only admire from afar. Please enlighten us. I guess in this world, I was the only one who truly understood her hidden meaning. Thinking about it, she was kind of pathetic. She had successfully escaped, but no one knew. She had broken free from her suffering, but there was no one to celebrate with. How could she not be bitter? Leo and I began our ridiculously lovey-dovey college life. Outside of my studies, I was still busy writing, and the income was enough to cover my tuition and living expenses. Leo was stubborn. With his family's support cut off, he gritted his teeth and got a job at a tutoring center. He was the top scorer in physics in the province, so he specialized in one-on-one tutoring. After one semester, he had not only earned his tuition but had also slowly overcome his social anxiety. For 4 years of college, we supported each other, serving as each other's safety net. We both achieved impressive results in our respective schools and majors. Chloe also had a fulfilling life. Her social feed was filled with high-end lectures and friends of all races, a true intellectual circle. She would occasionally call me, pretending to casually ask about how Leo and I were doing. Of course, I would pick out the worst parts of our life, embellish them, and feed them to her, making sure she always had the impression that Ava and Leo are living like animals, constantly at each other's throats and spiraling toward prison. She was very satisfied. I was very satisfied. She was the protagonist, after all. Only when she truly let go and stopped prying into our lives could I finally relax. In our senior year, Chloe announced her new boyfriend on her feed. He was a graduate student in her department, 2 years ahead of her. I was overjoyed. Leo snatched my phone and said sourly, "You care way too much about Chloe. Sometimes I really wonder if you have a crush on her instead of me." I rolled my eyes at him. Guess. His handsome face broke into a threatening smile as he pressed down on me, whispering into my earlobe, "I'm not guessing. I need you to be mine. Always mine, Ava. And I'm yours. Forever and always only yours, Ava, Ava." I wouldn't tell him that Chloe's new boyfriend looked a bit like him from the side. But my happiness didn't last 6 months. Chloe and her boyfriend broke up. She started calling me again. It was incredibly annoying, but I had to handle it carefully. Leo and I are starting to look for jobs. It's not going well. You know how we've just been fighting and making up for the past 4 years. We have no money, and we were relying on my dad's support. But then he started acting like he was king of the world for mooching off me and cheated. So I cheated right back to get even. Basically, life is a chaotic mess. Our grades are terrible. We have no certifications. So what company would want us? She wasn't as easily fooled as before. After a long silence, she suddenly asked, "Does Leo still love you?" "Love, huh? No. What is love anyway? When poverty comes in the door, love flies out the window. We're not a good match. We have nothing in common. Once the passion phase is over, what's left? Just a mess. I come from a working class background. My perspective is narrow. I can't understand him. And he looks down on me with his stuck-up attitude. Ugh, poor people have no right to be in love." She finally hung up, satisfied. I wiped the sweat from my brow, my heart still pounding. I was running out of stories to tell. Next time she called, should I tell her that Leo sold me for organ harvesting in Mexico, or that I sold him to a shady clinic in Thailand? I quickly signed my work contract with Leo. The goal and direction were set the year we took our college entrance exams. He joined a state-owned enterprise and voluntarily took a long-term assignment in Africa. As a French major, I could work as a translator and clerk at a Chinese construction site in Africa. Once we were gone, so far away, the noble and righteous Miss Chloe would have a very hard time finding us. Thank God. 10 years later, Leo and I finished our assignment abroad. We took the large stipends we had saved up. Along with my millions in writing royalties, I had written 2 popular long-form non-fiction novels set in Africa, and even traditional publishers were interested, and bought a house with a yard and a big tree in a coastal city to settle down. Leo and I found new jobs, and we found a suitable public elementary school for our daughter. Joy grew up in Africa. A yellow-skinned kid, she was as dark as an eel. When she smiled, her teeth were all you could see, and I swear if you tossed her in a coal bin, you'd never find her. Her Chinese was fluent, but her test scores told another story, especially the classical Chinese section. It made me so mad I'd chase her around the yard with a feather duster. "Are you even Chinese? Ha! Your little African friends speak better Mandarin than you do." She knew her dad had her back, so she wasn't afraid of me. Like a little African monkey, she'd scurry up a tree in a flash. Great. That tree climbing skill was passed down straight from her father. I used a fishing rod to poke her out of the tree. I turned around, and there was her dad. Father and daughter huddled together, trembling. 2 drama queens, putting on a sob show just for me. Honestly, looking at Leo now, with his shameless, tough-as-nails act that was identical to his daughter's, you couldn't find a single trace of the gloomy prince, the untouchable god of the past. If the protagonist saw him now, she'd cry. If she saw him now, she'd just shake her head. A tragedy beyond words. My scumbag dad, after relentlessly bombarding me with calls for 8 years, suddenly went silent. Because my deadbeat mom, who had abandoned her husband and daughter all those years ago, got tired of her adventures and came back home. And my scumbag dad actually let her back in. It seems they never officially divorced, so now they probably, possibly don't even need to remarry? Now the 2 old villains spend their days in physical brawls and love calling me to spill dirt on each other. I want to curse the heavens and say that wicked people get what they deserve, but listening to the commotion on their calls, I silently swallow the words. I think I'm insulting them, but they probably think I'm being a filial daughter and offering my sincere blessings. Leo and his parents had been out of touch for years, with no news of each other. The only possible future interaction would be receiving a letter from a lawyer, either demanding he fulfill his filial duties or handle an inheritance. I estimate the former is less likely. There's an unverified theory that a small portion of highly educated people are emotionally detached. This holds true for Leo's parents. They find satisfaction in their academic and professional lives. To them, a child isn't a source of joy, but rather a social obligation and a burden they have to bear. They were crude and unfriendly in handling this extra burden. So when Leo left his parents, apart from a few perfunctory calls during his first few years of college, never made any serious effort to find him or ask him to come home. When Leo and I had Joy, his parents only saw her once via video call, dutifully, without showing any of the interest most grandparents have for a new baby. They didn't even object when we gave Joy her Western-sounding name. It seems that not disturbing each other is the final bottom line, and respect we have for one another. Just as everything was slowly getting back on track, I received a call from a number that had been silent for a long time. "Ava, you and Leo are back in the country? Let's get a drink, have a chat." I paused, the string in my mind that had been slack for so long slowly tightening. Should I bring Leo along? Chloe was silent for a moment. I clearly heard her let out a short, quick breath on the other end. "No need to bring him. Let's just have a girls' get-together." Come to think of it, Chloe and I were desk mates for a while in high school. In the eyes of the world, our relationship should have been closer. Not the love-hate, years-long entanglement she had with Leo in our past life. Chloe flew in from the city where she worked just to see me. We met at the bar of the 5-star resort she was staying at. When she appeared, she was wearing a Burberry trench coat, custom-made casual leather flats, and her hair was dyed a deep auburn red, falling in big waves to her shoulders. Her makeup was exquisite, her features picture-perfect. She was a completely different person from the straight-A student council member with a simple ponytail and black-framed glasses who cared for nothing but her books. Of course, time hadn't just changed her. It had changed me too. The delicate girl who loved being cute, who loved long, flowing hair and sparkly accessories, was now a cool, middle-aged woman with short hair, a tan, and a wardrobe of oversized bomber jackets and carrot pants. Across 2 lifetimes and a combined 30 or 40 years, we sized each other up and gave a polite nod. After we sat down, a waiter brought our drinks. She spoke first, her tone firm and unquestionable. "You lied to me, Ava. You've been lying to me all along." I put down my coffee spoon, looked up, and met her gaze calmly. "You wanted to lie to yourself. I was just helping you." Her hand, holding the spoon, suddenly tightened. Her pupils shrank to pinpricks. We were both smart. A little hint was all it took. "You were reborn too?" She murmured, less like she was asking for an answer, and more like she was talking to herself. I always suspected it, but I refused to believe it. I'd rather believe that everything you told me was true, that you and Leo were at each other's throats, dragging each other to hell, than believe you were lying to me, that you two actually ended up happy. Yes. If Leo and I were truly happy together, wouldn't that make everything she did in her past life a joke? After all, when she hid my note, she genuinely believed she was on the side of justice, saving a prodigy who had gone astray. If that foundation was shattered, how could she justify her own logic? How could she maintain her moral high ground? But she quickly found a way. "You were reborn too. Then it all makes sense." She crossed her hands on the marble tabletop, her posture composed. "You must have turned over a new leaf and become a new person. And that's how you changed your and Leo's fate." Excuse me? Those words, from head to toe, reeked of condescension and arrogance. "Miss Chloe, even today, you still don't understand the root of your failure in 2 lifetimes, do you?" I leaned back, straightened my posture, and met her gaze. I didn't turn over a new leaf, because there was no leaf to turn. I'm still the same me from my past life. And Leo is still the same Leo. You lived across the hall from him, but from childhood to adulthood, you never noticed his silent struggle, never heard his silent cries for help. You couldn't accept his weakness and his tears. You only wanted to fantasize about a perfect, untouchable flower on a high peak for your own gratification. Nothing had changed. My voice wasn't loud, but every word carried my past indignation, pain, and contempt. And you are still the same as you were in your past life. Arrogant, self-important, unable to see real people, only able to see simple, fake personas. In your heart, you stubbornly believe that only people with good grades deserve other people with good grades. That only families of equal social standing can have truly strong love and marriage. You think poor people are only capable of being slutty, vicious, and evil, because poverty breeds malice. And rich people are noble, kind, and just because wealth fosters a good conscience. But there's an old saying too. The butcher is often more righteous than the scholar. You think because my family is poor and my grades are bad, my only reason for getting close to Leo is to drag him to hell. But did you ever consider that grades aren't the only thing that determines a person's life? That there's more than one path to success? Just like finding a life partner isn't like solving a math problem, there is no obvious answer. People spend their entire lives searching through a sea of faces for that one individual who can make their soul whole, who can make them feel pain or tears, laughter or joy. He or she may not be perfect, may not be outstanding, may not be wealthy, and may not even be healthy. But once you find that person, your soul tells you, this is it. This is the one who makes it all worthwhile. That kind of relationship isn't always healthy, like my scumbag parents. By any measure, they are the opposite of model parents. But I can't deny that for each other, they might truly be the one. Even Leo's parents. They can coexist coldly under one roof for a lifetime, and be united in their treatment of their son. Isn't that also a strange kind of symbiotic relationship? Life isn't a pre-drawn template, showing only health, positivity, perfection, and high morals. Life is a complex palette where light and darkness coexist, where baseness and nobility reside together. Nature creates a myriad of diverse forms. That's what makes the world interesting. Everyone is their own master, making decisions based on free will and accepting the risks and responsibilities. That's the joy of being human. Leo has his own reasons for loving me. What gives you the right to stand on high and arbitrarily decide for him what's good and what's bad? And when your good intentions weren't accepted, you had to use all your strength to stomp Leo and me into the gutter, into the deepest level of hell, to let us rot and stink, so we could repent, atone for our sins, and serve as a backdrop for your foresight and righteousness? Is it just because you have good grades and come from a good family that you get to be the righteous, moral, unchallengeable God? That everything you want should be served to you on a golden platter? Chloe, you need to wake up. The real world doesn't revolve around your will. It has its own logic. If you can't see it, if you can't accept it, then you will forever pin your hopes for a happy life on my and Leo's misfortune. You will never be free. As soon as I finished, a cup of coffee was thrown in my face. Luckily, I wasn't wearing makeup today, and my jacket was oversized, so the t-shirt underneath got wet, but it wasn't noticeable from the outside. I took out a tissue, wiped the cream from my face, and waved over the nervous waiter. I paid for my own coffee, stood up, and looked at the woman across from me. She was trembling all over. The glittery eyeshadow on her eyelids was smudged from her violent shaking, and her blush couldn't hide the pale white of her face. Chloe, let us go. For the sake of the girl who once worshipped you so intensely. Or for the sake of the fact that you played a part in my tragic death in our last life. Live your own life. Don't come looking for me anymore. I went home. Leo and Joy were kneeling under the tree. Next to them were two large open cardboard boxes filled with all sorts of wood pieces, thick and thin. Joy had said a while ago that she wanted a tree house. I took a quick shower, changed my clothes as fast as I could, and joined their little work group. Damn, these two work fast. If I'd been any later, I might have missed out on the final steps. The treehouse was finished. On a whim, I found a paint palette, and the three of us, with our fingers covered in all colors of the rainbow, painted wildly all over it. Leo had just stolen a kiss when he froze and yelled, "My soup is on the stove." Ah. He shot up, his hands held out awkwardly, and dashed into the kitchen like a startled rabbit. Joy happily snuggled into my arms and, when I wasn't looking, smeared a streak of paint on my face. I looked around for a handy twig. "You're getting bold, you little rascal. Have you written your essay for today?" She shrieked, jumped down from the tree, and scurried into the kitchen. I stood in front of the treehouse, twig in hand, looking at my child, my love, my home. Amid the noisy dusk, the world and I shared a knowing smile. Life was so good.